Interview with a personal shout out to my brother Josh, who introduced me to this band 22 years ago through their song Freak on a Leash, and now it is mind-blowing the fact that I've got one of the guys from that band on Wall of Sound right now. Please welcome Munky!
Yeah. Munky!
I was going to say, mate, with a name like Munky and a band like KoRn, it's going to be pretty hard to forget who you are and what you do. But, mate, you have been in this game for so fucking long, and now you've got a brand new album coming out. Album number 14. Is that mind-blowing in itself to think that, this is actually happening to you?
It's crazy to think that if you would have told me that in 1994 that I'm going to be in 2022 releasing an album, in our 14th album, I would have laughed in your face because it's just so... it's hard to imagine. Like, it's hard to imagine us making the next record, let alone looking that far into the future, especially with our lifestyle where we were fucking out of control. We were just drinking and partying and drugs and girls, and it was just total debauchery. So it was not like we ever thought about what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone 20 years from then, But really, it's pretty phenomenal to sit and or listen to an album that you just made and feel like this is pretty good, like feeling really confident that people are going to like it, and it still holds up to, what's going on now, like, other bands, it still feels fresh and current.
And you guys are always pushing the trajectory of the band and trying new things. We do remember the dubstep phase, and Get Up is still a great song, which I use to get me the fuck up and running outside. And this album itself, we'll talk about it in a sec, it slows things down a little bit. But I wanted to talk about the fact that you guys are always so forward-thinking and planning. Like, I feel we didn't really get to take in the full experience of the nothing because of obviously COVID hitting, and that to me in itself was an amazing return to form for the band. Now we're automatically moving on to Requiem, the new album. Where do you guys feel about that? Because you got to play a few shows, COVID hit, yourself got COVID too, and now you're sort of like moving on to the next phase.
It was kind of a fucking bummer. I gotta be honest, man. I was so excited, that album, we put the artwork together, we designed the stages, we got everything ready to roll out, merch and all, everything a band does before they go on the road and promote an album. And we had just sort of this just fucking kick to the balls. Yeah. And everybody did. Frankly, everybody that had the project or something all got kicked in the balls. So it was kind of like, okay, what's our next option? We can't tour. What are we going to do? Well, we can all, get in a room and maybe write some new music. And then that was kind of like, well, we just released an album though, and it was so good. And we felt really, really excited about it. But this comes from a whole different place. I feel like this album, not only did we write it in the middle of a pandemic and just having those anxieties, and like I was having mental health issues where it was, my anxiety was through the roof when I was just go out for milk. I was like goggles and wrapped up in a fucking saran wrap shit, whatever it was. It just like, I was kind of losing my shit. So it was kind of like, I told the guys, I was like, look, we got to get over to the studio safely and make a record, or just write some songs. There was not even really a record planned. It was just like, let's get in and write some songs. And things started going so well and it was so blissful to be in the room when there's all this dark, grim feeling out in the world, but to be in this little bubble in the studio, which is our own studio in California, and just have that, it's just sort of it's kind of like where time doesn't exist. And you just, when you listen to music of your favorite bands or something, you could just put on your headphones and sit back and you just think like, time doesn't matter. All the rest of the world fades away in the background, and you can just be, and that's what it is for us. Like our music has kept us going because it's the only thing keeping us alive.
And look, it's a great thing that is keeping not only yourselves alive, but your plethora of fans over the years. Like, I can even date back to albums you guys released in the late 90s, early 2000s. Thoughtless is my favorite KoRn song of all fucking time.
Love that song.
If that song didn't exist, I probably, A, wouldn't be here, and A, wouldn't be here, and B, I wouldn't have made it through high school, because it was such an anthem for us outcasts. And, you know, I'm still finding myself as a 34-year-old man reflecting on that song now, you know, working in the music industry. It's so relevant, and it stays, you know, with you through all of this time.
Yeah, I mean, when you know, looking back on that song, and it's one of my favorite songs too. That one, Here to Stay. There's so many great tracks on Untouchables. That was one of the most expensive albums I think anyone ever
It had to be done. It had to be done. And look at the end results. We're still talking about it now.
Right. And sonically, it really is the bar for a lot of bands still. Like, a lot of bands will tune their PAs when they go out live to some of those songs on that album, because it just has such a massive sound. But to still be talking about that, like, these days, and reflecting, you know, back on last year when we were in this room writing the new songs, you know, that's sort of looking back, it inspires us. And also the producer we worked with, Chris Collier, he was always the guy saying, not that riff. That riff sounds like I've heard that before from KoRn. And he's never afraid to, you know, tell me, Jonathan, or Ray, or anybody in the room, or Head, like, that riff sounds, I've heard that before. That's on 1995 Life is Peach or whatever. You know, like, you're like, oh, you get so excited, like, oh, dude, I got this. And they're like, yeah, but it sounds like, you know, No Place to Hide, or some shit like this. And it's good to have somebody speak up in the room, because otherwise you'll get invested in this whole, you know, wasting your time going down this a road you already been down.
Exactly, and that's, you know, what I was going to get into one of the next questions as well, is the fact that, you know, you've been releasing music in 4 different decades now, the 90s, the 2000s, 2010s, and now the 2020s, which is mind-blowing.
Right.
And you're still pushing the boundaries of what the band can do. You don't want to do the same thing over and over again, which I guess, you know, new metal music kind of has this stigma about it. It all sounds the same, but you can pick up any of the 14 KoRn albums, and you're going to get a different experience with whichever one you pick from all the different decades.
Yeah, I think that comes back to, like, personally where we are in our lives. You know, what we're looking for. You know, I think through the years also, it's shaped us as better songwriters. Like, if you listen to the first 2 albums, we have no fucking idea what we're doing, and that's a beautiful thing about it, because we were kind of uncovering a sound and we didn't know. It was pure expression, you know, and it reflects on those albums. But once we started having more experience in the studio, and people are like, can you play that chorus? And you're like, what the fuck is a chorus? Like, what are you talking about? Can you play that verse? What the fuck is a verse? You know, once we started to learn all these bits and pieces and how to tell a story through a song, I think that's what you get today, is more of a storytelling, kind of leading a listener on a more of a journey, than just coming out fucking angry, you know.
That's exactly,
That's definitely still there. But we can now lead up to it and lead the listener on, you know, more of a storytelling.
Well, in terms of making music nowadays compared to, let's say, those early 2 albums, KoRn, you know, creates a sound that no one can match. No, there's not one band that's come out that tried to either replicate what you guys do or was inspired by you and has that signature KoRn sound. But yourself personally, how have you changed as a musician from the 90s to where you are now? Do you take shit? Do you still give, you know, a fuck what people think of you? Or are you still this guy who just wants to make music in this band and hopefully touch and reach people?
I personally, like, so like I said, like, I need music to survive. I need it in my daily life. Like, it's part of, like, water, and, you know, I'm going to take a shit and then I'm going to listen to some music. I have to, whatever, if it's just pick up my guitar for 2, 5, 6 minutes, whatever I have, because I have 3 kids. if they'll let me for 5 minutes, it's not like I'm practicing because I should be, but I'm not the best guitar player at all. But the thing is that I'll try to create, even still, like a chord or a combination of chords or a progression that just sounds different. And when it does, it's like that spark of creativity goes off, and that kind of gives me a renewed feeling. And I think that carries over to the way we write albums. And each guy kind of has that. They're always kind of like pushing themselves personally to kind of, what have I not done before? Like, what can I try to do? And Jonathan's the same way in the microphone. And Head, he's amazing. That guy taught me how to play guitar, still teaching me.
And you guys, seriously, from watching you back in the early years to now, it is like the watching the best of friends on stage, in interviews, wherever we see you guys, you and Head together. It's just like, when you leave high school with your best mate, you form a band. Is it still like that nowadays?
It is, man. You know how much goofing off this band does. Even when you're writing the most serious song, someone will just stop and lay on the ground and flop like a fish. Like something stupid like that. Like, and we're 50. I mean, we just love to have fun in the creative process. When we take it and have, put artwork with it or match it with a live, it's taken seriously. Now, this is a bit of a serious kind of thing, but otherwise it's like, 4 or 5 friends hanging out, when we're playing live, we like to goof off. And especially when we're recording guitars, it's, when Head and I are recording guitars, we can barely get through a section without, someone making a joke or laughing or making mistakes.
And it goes to show how human you really are. Underneath all that teenage angst, which is then turned into mid-age angst to 50-year-old angst, you're still just an approachable guy who is writing these incredible songs after all this time. And for the most part, you're just having fun. You're still trying to figure out yourself and what you want to do in life, I guess. Yeah,
I mean, we're still looking and searching for, a new sound. And even though it's there, we're trying to expand that creative, what it is, it can be more than just what it is. There's angry, like you said, angry, and getting into our older years. I feel like there's a maturity in the songwriting where we can develop melodies and more complex rhythmic ideas and bring those into meet Jonathan's, angry lyrics, and it becomes this kind of well thought out, just journey. I feel like.
The vehicle itself. And I love that you said the maturity, because this album to me does sound like a mature approach for KoRn. However, there are still throwbacks for the fans who want something from the previous years. Worst is on its way. You brought back Twist in there, like the Twist section, which I thought was a fantastic way to wrap up the album, and it just left me wanting more. So regardless of the fact that you guys are growing and developing over the years, you're still staying in touch with the early years and paying tribute to the fans who have followed your journey from start to now.
Yeah, I mean, the best imitation comes from yourself.
Exactly. Do not stop doing what you're fucking doing, please, because
I'd rather hear us try to do something from the 90s than hear some other band try to do that and do it badly.
All right, well, let's talk about your kids, all right? Because you've got 3 kids and you've also got an elder one. Am I right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yep. So you're in this band that's globally recognized. Do they give a shit about that status, or are you just good old Daddy James to them?
Just good old dad. I got the same kick you in the balls. That seems to be the theme here. Kick me in the balls every day. Take me to school. Help me with the homework. Pick me up from the piano class. That whole thing is still. I do it every day. I did it today, and it's. I don't know. I love it. I love being a dad.
It's a beautiful feeling, isn't it? Especially when they, I guess, turn to you with all the things you thought was cool, all the things we thought were cool growing up, is now in a completely different generation. And, you know, they look back on the things we were doing, and you have to explain VHS tapes, cassette tapes, you know, CDs, going to a CD store, listening to the KoRn album, which is hanging on the wall, and then deciding right then and there if you want to buy it and take it home. They don't have any of that.
I mean, the whole, like, just Google it bullshit, like, man, I had to go to the fucking library. I had to look up the book. I had to find the book. I had to find the chapter. I had to find the paragraph. Now they can just, in Siri and shit, like whatever, just, come on. How are you going to remember that?
But how has KoRn stayed with the times? Because we've gone through all of those avenues, cassettes, records, CDs, streaming, now vinyl records are coming back again. KoRn's always remained at the forefront. How is that?
I think because, and this is just total honesty, I think people have such a connection with what Jonathan's saying. And that thread can thread all of the years up because he's so vulnerable, and that takes such fucking courage. I couldn't even have a conversation with my mom when I was 16. You know what I mean? So when you find that thing, or that band that lets you feel those feelings when whatever you're struggling with, you know, depression, or you're just having a hard time opening up about sadness or anything like that. He gives people a doorway to walk through safely and makes them feel like they're not alone. And he's done it for me every night when we're on tour and I'm not feeling great. There's a song we'll play. And I'll just listen to his lyrics and play and be like, oh, I feel so much better after that. Hear that song. And like, now I'm in a good mood, you know?
It's essentially that saying, you know, we turn to music as a cathartic way to help us with what we're going through life. And there are people out there, myself included, who have listened to KoRn throughout their whole entire life. You know, they don't know how to manage their feelings in those teenage years, so they lash out and, you know, they go to concerts and mosh pits and things like that. And I do agree with you. Jonathan is a fantastic story writer. He puts his heart and soul in all of his music and all of his lyrics. And it's evident in this album, Requiem, as well, too. It's a maturing sound, but it's still Jonathan bearing his soul for all of us to listen and go, yep, I relate to that, or this poor man, I just want to, you know, reach through the stereo and give him a hug. Yeah,
he is amazing at tapping into those feelings, and every night too. When he's singing those songs, he's in it. He is in the moment, and it's coming from a real place, exactly where it came from when he wrote it initially. So I think a lot of fans also, when they see us live, if they hadn't seen us, they feel that energy, and it's life-changing. And then even some people that haven't seen it and like, yeah, maybe I'll check them out. You know, they go on late or whatever, and they see us and they're like, oh, I get it now. I understand it. I see what these other people see that maybe I didn't see before, because the energy that's exchanged between the crowd and the band in a live setting for KoRn is pretty powerful.
It's all part of the experience. You not only go see a KoRn show, but you get the KoRn experience.
Totally. Yeah. Even if you're like, my mother-in-law, who's 70, oh, she's going to kill me for saying that. Anyways, she, after the first few times she saw us live, she's like, you guys are amazing. Wow, Jonathan is just he's so powerful. The band is so strong. You're like superheroes up there. And I was just like, you're fucking awesome, Grandma.
Well, that's inspiration for the next one, how Munky got killed by his mother-in-law.
That's good, man. Oh.
Mate, we got to wrap things up, but I wanted to touch on something which has been personal to me for years, and I wanted to get your opinion on it. Now, years and years ago, I was listening to pop music, listening to commercial radio, and then there was that amazing crossover with nu metal when you had KoRn, Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park, Evanescence, all played on commercial radio, and nowadays the mainstream media has turned its back on heavy music, and you guys have once again had to go back to doing it all on your own with no support. Reflecting on those years when, you know, you couldn't turn the TV on without seeing KoRn, Limp Bizkit, heavy music And then nowadays you tuck it on and you just see pop music left, right, and center. How does that make you feel in terms of, you know, them, I guess you could say, riding on your coattails back in those early days to just now not giving a shit?
Personally, I feel like it doesn't matter, because if it's good and it's coming from a real place, they come and knocking. they come and I don't know. Pop music has evolved into something so synthetic, you know. It'll get to the point where it's so not real. People will crave real instruments and someone that's actually singing live, and you know, that whole thing will come around again because there'll be a need for it. And it's, you know, it's kind of, it comes in waves. And it's okay. Because we're not in it for the fame. We're in it for the fan.
Perfect. And you're 14 albums deep and a plethora of fans across the world who cannot wait to see what you do next. The brand new album, Requiem, is out February 4. KoRns, Munky, mate, it's been an absolute honor. Thank you so much for joining us at Wall of Sound.
Thanks so much, Browny. I appreciate you and your support.
Wall of Sound.